SITREP World Briefing for August 23, 2026. The United States and Canada escalated their trade dispute on Saturday after Washington imposed new 50% tariffs on certain Canadian goods, and Ottawa said it would respond dollar for dollar. The latest measures marked a sharp deterioration in talks between two economies that are deeply integrated through cross-border manufacturing, energy, agriculture, and consumer trade. And they pushed a long-running bilateral argument into a more openly punitive phase. President Donald Trump said trade talks with Canada had collapsed and argued that Canada wanted the benefits of being a U.S. state without accepting what he presented as the obligations of that arrangement. Ottawa rejected that framing and moved to mirror the new U.S. tariffs, signaling that neither side was prepared to step back immediately. Because the United States and Canada share one of the world's largest trading relationships, new duties at this scale are likely to reverberate through supply chains, especially in sectors where components and finished goods cross the border multiple times before reaching buyers. The confrontation also carries political weight beyond the tariff rates themselves. Canada has long treated access to the U.S. market as central to its export economy, while Washington has repeatedly used tariffs as leverage in broader negotiations over industrial policy, border issues, and economic sovereignty. Saturday's move suggested that recent claims of a workable relationship between Trump and Canadian leaders had not translated into a settlement. Instead, both governments publicly embraced reciprocal measures, increasing pressure on businesses, investors, and provincial and state officials that depend on stable North American trade rules. Togo's government said it has serious evidence against two French documentary filmmakers detained in Lomé, Togo, since July, insisting the case rests on more than unsupported accusations. The men, Gaël Mokaer and Sébastien Perez Pisani, were arrested alongside their Togolese fixer, and all three deny the charges against them. Authorities have said the case involves false statements. By publicly stressing that the evidence is serious and consistent, or serious and corroborative, the Togolese government is trying to show that the detentions are part of a legal process. Cases involving documentary filmmakers are particularly sensitive because they often touch on reporting, political accountability, and the extent to which authorities will tolerate independent investigations into public life. The detention of the two French nationals and their Togolese colleague also places pressure on relations between Togo and France, a former colonial power whose ties with West African states have become more politically fraught in recent years. The government's statement signals that the authorities intend to defend the case publicly, rather than quietly release the men. That raises the stakes for any consular efforts, legal appeals, and international advocacy on behalf of the detainees, as the case moves forward in Togo's courts or security system. French President Emmanuel Macron said Paris would deliver new interceptor missiles to Ukraine after a fresh wave of Russian strikes intensified pressure on Kyiv's already strained air defenses. The announcement came as Ukraine and Russia continued exchanging fire, and as Ukrainian authorities sought more means to intercept incoming missiles and drones. France signaled that it sees air defense, rather than only artillery or armored support, as an urgent requirement for protecting cities, infrastructure, and civilians in Ukraine. The timing is significant because interceptor stocks have become one of the most critical constraints on Ukraine's defense, especially during sustained Russian attacks aimed at overwhelming air defense networks. In Kyiv, Ukraine, and other targeted areas, the ability to shoot down missiles can determine whether strikes hit apartment blocks, shopping areas, power facilities, or military sites. France's pledge may help preserve scarce defensive capacity and reinforces Macron's effort to keep European military support visible as the war continues. For France, the move also fits a broader European debate over how to sustain Ukraine as Russia keeps targeting the rear as well as the front. Interceptor missiles are expensive, limited in supply, and most valuable when delivered quickly enough to affect the tempo of attacks. Macron's decision links French assistance directly to the latest Russian bombardment, with the intention of reducing civilian casualties and strengthening Ukraine's ability to hold the line in the air. Sources and the full written briefing are available at sitrepbrief.com.